Welcome back to the Extra Zone Arcade. What you're about to watch is the final review of the year, so what better way to end things off than a good old-fashioned party. This was an interesting one to approach because Mario Party has always been one of those games you can play endlessly. In other words, I had to change up the structure of this review a little compared to the previous ones. I hope you guys enjoyed this one all the same. So, let's talk about one of my favourite and already most played games of this year, Super Mario Party Jamboree. If you recall the Mario and Luigi Brothership review, this part will sound familiar. Like that game, Jamboree was revealed at the June Nintendo Direct to huge amounts of hype. A game that promised to be the biggest Mario Party yet. It had been 3 years since the release of Mario Party Superstars, which pretty much acted as a small remake of the first 3 Mario Parties with minigames from 1 through 10. That game also came out 3 years after the prior game, Super Mario Party. So technically it had been 6 years since the last all-new Mario Party and, given the title, was looking to be a sequel to that 2018 game. Also like Mario and Luigi Brothership, this game's marketing after the fact was certainly there. Kinda. We got a better look at some of the new boards and a couple of the returning ones, as well as the 2 new characters coming to this game. Pauline makes her first Mario Party appearance, as well as Ninja, who have both sort of become Mario spin-off mainstays at this point. But yeah, for the most part, the marketing was pretty subdued like most of Nintendo's other releases this year. What wasn't subdued was this game's reception, which, unlike Brothership, was pretty overwhelmingly positive across the board. It seems as if they really did deliver on that promise of the biggest Mario Party ever. But do I feel that way? Well, if you've already watched this far in, I'm sure you want to know, so let's talk about it. First, let's talk about the roster of partygoers. Of course, you have all the usual suspects like the Mario Brothers, the Princesses, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario, Waluigi, and Rosalina, but the rest of the cast is where it gets weird. Most of it is returning characters from Super Mario Party 2018, which means that half the roster are basic enemies like Goomba, Koopa Troopa, Shy Guy, Monty Mole, and for some reason, Spike. Everyone's favourite, iconic, and lovable green menace. How could he not grace this game with his, tuft of blue hair? Anyway, he was in Mario Party 10 but skipped out on 2018, so it's kinda weird to see him here. Especially since more popular characters like Diddy Kong, Dry Bones, and arguably Pom Pom didn't make the cut from that game. Toadette also returns from Mario Party 10 after an absence in 2018, but she at least makes a little more sense than Spike of all characters. So yeah, some kinda weird picks and even weirder omissions here, but this game has the biggest selection of characters in series history with a whopping 22. Unlike SMP 2018, characters don't retain their unique dice blocks, with them opting for the standard 1 to 10 dice block that the series has had since its inception 26 years ago. A feature that does return from that game though is the ally system, but it works quite a bit differently this time around. First of all, the number of characters that can appear as allies has been stripped back, with the only ones being Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario, Waluigi, Rosalina, and Bowser Jr. You might notice that these are all characters that appeared in Mario Party Superstars, with the exception of Birdo being replaced by Junior. How dare they? Justice for the trans community. On top of the number of characters that can show up as an ally being lowered, the number of them you can recruit at a time has also been dropped down to only 1. Thank God. Back then it felt like if you had more than 1 ally, you practically had the game won just because of how much of a massive advantage they each gave you. Your ally also only sticks with you for up to 3 turns, rather than up till the end of the game. That all is, if you even get that ally in the first place, because now you have to play a specialized minigame to actually have them join you. These are really neat, especially since they're specific to the character you encounter. If you're the first to get to them, you can get an advantage that ranges from pretty inconsequential to completely vital if you want to win. One of my favorites was Mario's 3-peat, where you play 3 classic Mario Party minigames back to back, being Leaf Leap, Bumper Balls, and Shy Guy Says. Waluigi's Pinball Arcade is also a really fun one that references the classic Mario Kart DS track, but it's also one where your given advantage means pretty much jack shit due to the random nature of the roulette. Rosalina's Radical Race had to grow on me a little due to the awkward controls, but now that I'm used to it, I'll never lose. The only one I really don't like is Peach's Day Out. This one all but comes down to the second activity where you have to pick a tray of donuts to deliver to her. Pick the same as another player and you're getting knocked on your ass, and there are a lot of points up for grabs here. So, fumbling this one pretty much means fumbling the princess. Fireworks show be damned. So yeah, I feel like this overhaul to the ally system was for the best. A feature that was once an easy ticket to victory in an already very lax game is now something a lot more involved. Hell, there are even situations where having an ally can be a disadvantage this time around, since every space you land on is doubled. If it's a lucky space, great. You just reached the star? Even better. Landed on a Bowser space? Yeah, nah, it's not gonna be pretty. It adds this really satisfying risk and reward system that I think does a lot to freshen up the gameplay between each session. And trust me, I would know. The board selection this time is, in my opinion, the strongest aspect of the game. I mean this wholeheartedly when I say these boards are the best we've had since the GameCube era, which to me was the absolute peak of the series. A couple of these are even on par with those boards, which I honestly never thought would happen after the mostly disappointing selection in Mario Parties 8 through 2018. Not to say that there were no good boards in those games, but they never felt like they came even close to what we were getting in 4 through 7. I feel like we're finally back to that standard of quality and creativity again, so let's look at each board and gush over all the cool features they have. Mega Wiggler's Tree Party is a mouthful of a name, but also this game's introductory board. As such, it's the most basic without many crazy gimmicks. That doesn't mean it's boring though, since there's still plenty to do with the giant wiggler moving around the center. This can change up how you move around the board pretty dramatically, and if you disturb him too much, he might get real pissed. I mean, I would be too if a gang of nutcases kept waking me up every few minutes with the most obnoxious bell known to man. If he gets mad, those lucky and blue spaces on his back will turn into dangerous red and Bowser spaces, and I don't need to tell you what happens if you land on those. There are also beehives you can poke to extract honey, and piranha plants that grow each time they take a bite out of you, stealing more money as they grow. Aesthetically, this board is your standard fare for a Mario Party forest board, but the layout and event spaces keep things interesting upon revisits. Not bad for what's meant to be the most vanilla map in the game. This one has more going for it than the most complex boards in the 2018 game, which is already saying a lot. Roll & Raceway is one of the most unique boards in a Mario Party ever. They pretty much thought, what if we combine our two biggest spin-off series and make it a board in this game? And unsurprisingly, it turned out to be one of my favorites in the whole game. You're driving around a track in a cart where pit stops can refill your tank by giving you a bunch of dice blocks, one of which can be a turbo dice that gives you 4 dice rolls. The interesting thing about that dice is you zoom forward and stop for absolutely nothing, including the star. On that topic, the star only appears in one of 2 locations here, which really adds to that feeling of a high-speed race to the finish. Event spaces here include various jump panels that can send you to different parts of the track, and a car chase that can sometimes feature Sniffet and Womp from Spaceland. Just a really awesome track that stands out with its strong gimmicks. Goomba Lagoon is another one that's just chock full of stuff to do, from the zip lines to the erupting volcano and even some treasure chest opening. The most poignant feature of this board is the raising and lowering tides, which makes spaces inaccessible for a few turns. This means you can actually end up stuck in one of the multiple islands here for a handful of turns. At first I wasn't too big on this, but after more playthroughs I realized it actually makes for a really fun map to strategize. Let's say you get stuck on this island with all these lucky spaces. You'd actually be pretty well off here because you could potentially get an item to just warp you out of there, or you could choose to stick around and reap as many benefits as possible. Items like the Shop Hop Box, Warp Pipe, Warp Block and Warp Mirror are necessary if you want to navigate this board with ease, so pick one up at your earliest convenience. The Exploding Volcano also adds a lot of variation here. You could end up with a ton of cash if you stomp on the golden Goombas, or end up with a literal burning hole in your wallet for stepping on the lava bubbles. There are so many elements at play that no 2, 10 or 100 rounds here will even be remotely the same. Rainbow Galleria was the first board they showed off for this game, and way to put your best foot forward theming wise. Mario and Malls just seem to be a really good mix no matter what type of game it shows up in. It's super colourful and lively with some great background music to really sell that feeling of spending copious amounts of money on things you definitely don't need. The board itself has a layout that can prove to be difficult to get around. Most of the time if you pick a direction, you pretty much have to commit to it, which I guess is accurate to the real life mall experience. Generally speaking, there won't be too many times where you'll want to change course, so it's not the biggest problem. Occasionally, a flash sale will take place where the store is flooded with shoppers, making items and even stars discounted for a short time. There's a 4th place stall that gives you a pick-me-up if you're struggling, a pawn shop where a thwomp will trade one of your items for coins, and an elevator that can take you between the floors. If that wasn't enough action, there's also shops that sell super special and gold items on the 2nd and 3rd floor, as well as a stamp system where you can cash them in for coins. Basically, there are tons of ways to earn money and even more ways to spend it on this map. Longer turns here can either end up breaking or making the bank for you, so shop responsibly. Lastly for the new boards is King Bowser's Keep, the lair of Imposter Bowser. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about him. So to accommodate for the fact that Bowser is playable again, landing on a Bowser space will have this phantom version of the Koopa King appear before you. This map revolves completely around him, literally. He'll spit out fireballs every so often that can change the spaces on the Bowser byway to be a little more him. If you do a longer game, this can end up with practically every space in the center being a Bowser space. Yeah, this map almost reaches Mario Party 1 levels of bullshit and I love it. If you decide to land on any of those Bowser spaces, he might just decide to smash the roulette and choose your fate for himself. Any coins or stars you forfeit as a result will end up in the vault guarded by a Sledge Bro, to be unlocked by a combination. There's a regular and large size Mecha Koopa defeated by rolling a high enough number, Bullet Bill blasters that will take your coins if you're shot, and Bob-ombs that can chase you into a red pipe, which sends you back to the start. This map is pretty much mayhem incarnate. It's impressive how much they really did make it feel like a Mario Party 1 board while avoiding some of the more problematic aspects of that game. And hey, speaking of Mario Party 1, Mario's Rainbow Castle is our first returning board here, and mechanically is just like the original. Reach the central tower and it will rotate between Toad, who will award you a star, and Bowser, who will scam you 40 coins for a Zatar, which is pretty much a glorified cardboard cutout. The tower can also be rotated by event spaces, and this affects the shop as well, which will swap between Koopa Troopa and Kamek. Typical Mario Party 1 rules apply, with the star always being in one spot, and the board stays true to the original layout, so not much to add other than it's a great remake of an iconic board. The same can be said for the second returning board, and the last to talk about, Western Land from Mario Party 2. Just like the original, Steamer will chug around the map, taking you to different stations and potentially knocking other players back to the start if they end up in his path. You can go visit Wiggler for some milk and a hootenanny, which can bring everyone to one spot just for shits and giggles. Completely unrelated, well, kinda, but what's up with the whole Wiggler milk thing in this game? Seriously, he runs the milk stand in Western Land and there are advertisements for it everywhere. Like, is it just Wiggler branded milk or is it milk from a Wiggler? You know, I don't even want to think about the biology behind that one. Yeah, so Western Land is cool. I do think it would have been a neat detail to have the characters dress up in their cowboy/girl/whatever the fuck Spike is get-ups, but given how much bigger the roster has gotten since 1999, it's understandable why they don't do it this time. So that's the boards. They're all pretty great with plenty of gimmicks to keep them unique between themselves. Aesthetically and mechanically they're all completely different, but not in a way where anything clashes or feels like it doesn't belong. And one thing I really want to see them continue moving forward is having new boards coexist with the old ones. Next time though, I'd love to see some of those classic GameCube boards make it in. It feels like we've been getting a ton of love for the 64 era games, which is great, but my love is with Mario Parties 4 to 7, so I want to see some of those boards make it in. When it comes to the new boards, I just need to see this level of creativity and uniqueness continue. That's all. They've got it down now, so all that's left is just to iterate on that. It wouldn't be a Mario Party without the minigames, and good ones at that. So does this game deliver in that aspect? Well, I can say for sure that it does. However, the minigame rotation is kinda dog water. For starters, I barely get 2v2 games. Honestly, I don't know if it's an issue with my copy, but no exaggeration, I've played less than 15 of them in the 2 months I've had this game. The last time I played Prime Cuts was probably over a month and a half ago, I shit you not. On the flip side, I can't tell you the number of times I had to play Scuttle Shuttle while getting footage of this, but not once did I get Tiny Triathlon. On top of that, out of the over 110 minigames featured, only 53 of them are playable in the main party mode. This is probably my biggest gripe with the game because the freshness of the boards is offset by the fact that it feels like you're playing the same 10 minigames over and over. By the time I was done recording, I never wanted to see Lost and Pound again. Regardless, the minigames themselves have a lot to offer, both new and returning. The selection of returning minigames is kinda weird, but then again, we just had a game that was made up of all the fan favorites, so it kinda makes sense we'd be left with the more oddball choices. I'm totally cool with that because it gives these a chance to shine beyond their original versions. For the returning games, Jump the Gun, Domination, and Platform Peril were my favorites to see back. They're just as fun before, even if Domination in particular is just a mashing game. Except no, it isn't. It's the mashing game. In terms of the new games, my favorites were Snag the Flags, Sandwiched, Hammer at Home, Pickaxe Dash, Cookie Cutters, Rocky Rope Race, and Fuzzy Heights. The variety here is really something to behold. These games in particular really highlight just how crazy Mario Party minigames can get, and I adore them for that. I mean, what could be more off the wall than platforming up to avoid getting crushed by a giant falling ham and cheese sandwich? Maybe slapping each other with a robotic gloved hand? Or arm wrestling with giant mechs? That's not enough for you? Boom! An obstacle course where you control a hover car, but you and your partner individually control the X and Y axis. I mean, I only got to play that one probably once, but it was really fun that one time. So yeah, if you couldn't tell already, I think they absolutely nailed the frantic, fun, and varied nature of the minigames this time around. Problem is, it feels like I barely get to play any of them, which really sucks. Especially since it feels like the more interesting ones are what seem to get filtered out a lot for me. Then again, maybe it's because I barely get to play them that they seem more interesting? I don't know. That'll do it on the minigame front, so now I guess it's time to talk about the rest. Of course, there's the minigame island, which has a bunch of different challenges revolving around them. There's a survival mode, free play, and a team-based mode for endless fast fun. The motion island has, as you can probably guess, its own set of modes that revolve around moving around like a complete whack job with your Joy-Cons. Rhythm Kitchen has you move to the beat as you cook up some hot meals, judged by this highly esteemed panel of Yoshis. This one's a ton of fun and actually gets pretty difficult if you're attempting challenge mode. Toad's Item Factory revolves around completing 30 puzzle rooms with this marble. It was a pretty alright time waster, and I guess we get to see the process that gets us all these partying tools, so that's some neat lore. Paratrooper Flight School is strange. Even stranger is that it's actually fun. The flapping around like an idiot part is already entertaining enough, but then there are a handful of modes like this one where you collect Para Biddy Buddies, a free flight mode, and my personal favourite, Paratrooper Taxi. You work together to pick up friends and foes alike, to deliver them with the speed of a hawk to a designated spot. It's great fun trying to coordinate this while probably bumping into each other and dropping Goomba towers along the way. There's also the Bowser challenges, Koopathlon and Bowser Kaboom Squad, which we saw in the trailers and feature their own minigames. I actually haven't played these as of making this review, but I plan to do that for the first time with you guys on stream, so head on over to the YouTube live channel and Twitch linked in the description next Friday the 27th. You can join in the fun, and maybe I'll follow this up with a short video talking about them after the fact where you can show up in the footage. The last game mode isn't found in the hot air balloon, but in the party plaza off to the side. This is the single player mode of the game, Party Planner, where you go through the game's 5 new boards helping to set up for the festivities. It's pretty alright. Mainly, you're going to be walking up and down looking for items to give to the team setting things up as you collect mini-stars. You can also participate in minigame challenges and recruit some of the other playable characters that help you out in a big boss fight before proceeding to the next area. The bosses are pretty damn cool, but other than that, it's just another harmless distraction that you'll probably forget about not too long after it's done. If you're on the go and desperately need your Mario Party fix, this will give you a decent enough taste of that. These extra modes really do a lot to flesh out the experience for what is by far the most content we've ever seen in the series to date. If the worst I can say about them is that they're inoffensive, that's a good sign. It's just more stuff to do in an already great game, so go nuts and see if any of these modes speak to you. At this point, the only thing left to discuss is the presentation. It's a Mario Party, so of course the presentation is just about as clean as it can get. But this game just has that little bit of extra flair. Like when your turn starts, each character has a different little jingle associated with them. Luigi stood out to me particularly because it may or may not be a reference to his theme in Mario Strikers Charged.
Luigi time!
The soundtrack in general is more of that bombastic silliness you would expect out of the series, but sometimes you might get a crazy banger like when it's down to the last 5 turns in Mario's Rainbow Castle and Bowser is out. The BGM suddenly becomes this really desperate sounding heavy metal track that sells the feeling of not wanting to visit the big guy this late into the game. The UI has also seen a pretty big step up. Now you can anticipate when certain board events are going to happen, how close you are to playing a minigame, and when you're going to hit the home stretch. Unfortunately, you don't get to see everyone's look of abject disappointment when you grab a star in this one, but the visuals are still nice and striking regardless. Look, Mario's doing the pose from the Superstars box art. The graphics haven't been noticeably upgraded from the previous games, but there's some animation changes here and there to keep it from feeling tired. This game also marks the first time that new Mario, Luigi and Wario voice actor Kevin Afghani is voicing Waluigi, so that's pretty cool. He does a great job with him. It was honestly hard to tell at first if they were just reusing his clips from previous games. With all that said, let's head to the after party. You know, like the conclusion. Yeah, it's time for that now. Super Mario Party Jamboree had promised to deliver on being the biggest and best Mario Party in history. Well, I'd be lying if I told you they didn't reach that goal with flying colors, but then again, this whole video has been testified to that. With the most playable characters, the most minigames, the best boards in damn near 20 years, and a whole host of other modes, I can see myself playing this game for years to come. The next Mario Party could be a 5 or more year wait, and I'd be more than fine playing this one over and over until then. Nintendo Cube has come a long way as the de facto developer of this series with their very humble roots in Mario Party 9. If the future of this series is this fantastic, we're in good hands. This is the culmination of the series getting back on track during the Switch era after a very rough decade prior. The result of refining a gameplay formula to its absolute peak. If Super Mario Party Jamboree isn't the perfect Mario Party, it's about as damn close as we've gotten. With the party now over, let me know what you think of this game below. Love this game? Hate it? Think Mario Party 10 was actually a masterpiece and everyone else is stupid? Sound off below, but don't forget to leave a like and subscribe before that. Mario content is going to go crazy in 2025, so keep it locked here to see it all. I already plugged the live channels earlier, so just a reminder to go follow them. Well, I'm done here for now. My next video is going to be something random, so keep an eye out for that, and as always, see you there.